Hey Tony.
Hey.
So what do you need? Like, do you need help?
No, I just wanted to practice to make sure it kind of goes by smoothly. Or you can maybe look at the introductions I have to introduce the questions. Um, yeah, I just wanted to make sure it went by smoothly. So when it is time for our questions, we're not that awkward silence we were talking about. Um,
Shauna, you're welcome to come back later, or if you want to just you can watch because you're gonna be doing this in a couple of weeks too, so you can also just hang out. It's not a big deal either way. So,
okay.
anyways, Tony. Um, okay, so yeah, what would be the best from me?
Okay. I can I just want to know these are good trends. I can send it to you. Um, good transitions into the questions.
Okay.
As if are the transitions smooth mainly is what I'm asking.
Okay. Yeah, I guess you can either read one or two or send it to me, whatever works best for you.
Okay, I'll just read it. Okay, so for my first question, Ty is gonna ask, how did attending Fresh Fest influence you and what impact did Dapper Dan have on your journey? And then we kind of go from there to talking about what it's like being a young Black woman in the industry. So I said entering a male-dominated industry as a young Black woman is a challenge, yet a powerful choice to embrace and overcome. How did you ensure your voice was heard in a male-dominated industry?
Good. Yeah, I mean,
And
I
then
think that's great.
Okay. And then another after that, well actually no, that's fine because the next question goes into the previous question. Actually, you know what? I think I'm good. I think I'm overthinking it.
I
I think I'm
think you
fine.
are maybe overthinking it a little bit. Yeah, don't um definitely don't overthink it.
Okay.
Just do your work, do your thing, and it'll be fun. You guys have done your homework, right? So
Yeah.
like it's not like you're out of nowhere just kind of making shit up, right? So like you got your preparation. I would say also like don't be afraid because again, like I said, you've got your plan, but your plan is not also always how it goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and what I mean by that is not it's going to go not according to plan, but you might be like, oh wait, that was interesting. I want to stay on this question, or I want to ask a follow-up question, or that brings something else up for me. Do that. That's no
Mm-hmm.
absolutely no problem. All like that's why things feel at least I would maybe characterize. I don't know how the experience is from you, but when I have guests and I'm moderating, like it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like I'm just like, and my next question will be, like I'm like, oh yeah, and that makes sense, and that actually brings me to something else I wanted to talk. Like, don't be afraid to like, or I'm like, oh, actually, you said that thing, you haven't said that before. That's why it's different every single time, is because like they say different things and different things pop up. So don't be afraid to also go off script. Your script is like your
Mm-hmm.
safety net and so on. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. I think I'm fine. I think I was just overthinking it.
Okay, cool. And then once you guys, and I mean, we can just hang out. I'll probably just mute and turn the camera off in a second. And Ty, I'm gonna give you a chance to ask questions too in a second. But what I'll do is I'll just out, at the very beginning around 1:45 when she logs on, I'll be like, hey, thank you so much for being here. For anybody who's not from the class, this is what the class is. This is what we're doing. Is a part of a speaker series. We've got two students here who are going to help moderate, and then I'm going to say, introduce the guests. And so I like, how I do like the long introductions, and I'll do
Mm-hmm.
a kind of red introduction. And then we are going to like I'll say right away, so I'll be like, please give a warm welcome to the self-described Sacagawea of streetwear, which I think is hilarious, April Walker. And then everyone will go, yay, 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 and then
Mm-hmm.
you guys, I'll say, all right, so Tony and Ty, you guys have questions, so let's go ahead and get into it, and then y'all can pick up right there.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Ty, do you have any questions or anything you need?
Yeah, my only question was specifically, I was looking at our questions that we have, and I feel like we missed getting into what was her life like before she started her boutique. I feel like, I mean, and I feel like that's not a hard question to start off with. just asking like, hey, what was your life like, growing up, just basically asking that. I feel like that would be better to get then going to her starting her boutique. And because my first question is 215 Green Avenue, what's the significance of this address? And then blase, blase, blase. Like, so I feel like asking that question first may be a little better.
So what you could do, I think along those lines, because I think just asking like what her life was like might be a little too broad, But I think what you could say is like, because if you remember, like she wasn't trained in fashion, like that was not what she did or was going to do initially. And so you could say like, hey, I know you didn't necessarily have a background in fashion before you started up your early work. Like, can you walk us through like before any of these kind of fashion any of your work in fashion, what were you interested in as a young person trying to figure out what you wanted to do? And maybe you could start like there instead.
Okay.
Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Okay,
So
that
just
makes a lot
play,
of sense.
you can play around with it and maybe just type in like type up a question to put at the very beginning. Now, again, also don't be afraid to skip around. Like if it feels like two questions are going to be kind of redundant, y'all are only going to be talking with her for about 30 or 40 minutes, maybe 40 like max. So you also want to make sure that we get through like a lot of material too, right? So you don't like if it feels like you're like, okay, my next question, like, that's good, but I think we need to keep pushing it along, then feel free to skip questions and skip around too. And if you need help with something like that too, I'll be in the chat. You're welcome to message me, email me, whatever while we're going, and I'm happy to lend a hand. But again, also if I feel like if you guys feel like you're stumbling or something, I will immediately hop in and help you and make sure that you're good.
Okay.
But also, it's not, I know it might feel like a lot of pressure. It's just going to feel like a conversation. Like once things get rolling, you're not really going to be sitting there being like, oh my God, what's my name? It'll just be back and forth. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah. I think I'm good.
And then what I'll do is I'll let you know at a certain point, like I'll probably put it in the chat and I'll say something like, okay, there are only like we're about to wrap up this portion. If you have any questions, you can either raise your hand or put them in the chat. So once you see that, you'll know that that's when we'll transition. You'll ask your last question, she'll answer it, and then that's when I'll come back and I'll be like, great, okay, now we have question and answer, and I'll moderate that portion so that you guys can kind of just like take a breath and sit back.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Questions, comments, concerns? Cool.
I think I'm
Yeah,
good.
don't overthink it. Like it's simple, it's straightforward. Yeah, you don't need to feel worried about this because she also talks to students and has mentored people before. So, she's not going to be like, why are you asking me that? It's like, it's not like that. So it'll be nice. And I think once we get going, it'll feel natural.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna mute and turn my camera off because I gotta run through and do a couple of other things real quick. But right around 1:40, I will hop back on. And we will like meaning I'll turn my camera on and stuff like that. And then at that point we will get started.
Okay.
Oakley. He's very like free spirited. He is like down for anything. So I mean, so have you ever done drag before? I have never performed, but I got like my.
For those of you who are just joining us too, we're just hanging out for a few minutes. And April's going to join us at 1:45. So, just kind of hang out for a few minutes and then we'll get started. And I'm just taking attendance based on your name, so you don't need to do anything for attendance. Again, for those of you who are just joining us, we're just kind of holding tight until we get to our guest around 1:45. So just hang out, do whatever you want to do, and we'll get started then. Hey Ty, real quick, what's your year and major? Are you there, Ty? Guess not. Hey, Miss Walker, how you doing? Hello, hello. Hold on.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, we can hear you now.
Good, good, good. How are you?
Doing all right. We are all on teams today. Other we were supposed to be in a classroom, but we had a threat of snow. It didn't actually snow, but they canceled classes today anyways. So we're all here joining you virtually.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, how you
So
doing?
I'm well.
So the way that we're going to do this is I'll introduce you, and actually we've got two students who have prepared questions for you. So they're actually going to be doing some of the interview work, and that's Tony Walker, and I'm going to pin all of y'all up here so that we can see everybody well. It's Tony Walker, who is a junior cultural studies major, and Ty Ammons, who is a sophomore communication arts major. So we're all going to be in conversation together today. So we'll chat. Ty and Tony will lead us through some questions, the ones that I sent you for the first 30 or 40 minutes. And then the rest of the time we'll have options for question and answer. So for those of you who are just following along, those in the class, or anyone who's joining us from the public, feel free to shoot your questions in the chat as they come up. We'll also have a chance to raise your hand and unmute and ask the questions yourself. So yeah, and we'll go ahead and get into it. So It would be kind of impossible to overstate April Walker's importance to hip hop fashion, especially in the era of the rise of the hip hop fashion designer. Fab Five Freddy, who some of you might remember from the Jeanette Beckman photographs that we looked at in the Wild Style movie, um, he has called her the Chanel of streetwear. She grew up around music. Her dad was a manager for many jazz artists like McCoy Tyner, Jackie McLean, and Gary Bartz, R&B groups like D-Train, and some early hip hop artists like Jazzo and Jay-Z in the very early years, from what I understand. Hailing from Clinton Hill, Brooklyn, April Walker got her start in hip hop fashion through a word of mouth shop called Fashion and Effect. Inspired by the looks that she saw around the neighborhood in live shows, she wanted to create a line that served the community itself. She then launched her much acclaimed line Walker Wear, which featured clothes that both represented the culture and responded to the needs and wants of up and coming artists. Walkerwear also featured oversized clothes, deeper pockets, velour tracksuits, and her signature rough and rugged suit. She's worked with artists like Biggie since before he was a well-known MC, as well as Eric B. and Rakim, Jam Master Jay of Run DMC, Onyx, and Naughty by Nature. We can't really conceive of streetwear, urban wear, or street couture without the contributions of April Walker. She's a multi-hyphenate creator as a fashion designer, author, disruptor, creator, wellness advocate, educator, and filmmaker. And she even ran a pet boutique and a dog food line. She's been doing everything. And so Walker Wear has also now been relaunched and is doing some work around the legacy of 50 years of hip hop, and as well as kind of expanding the legacy beyond that. And recently she was honored by an HBCU in Detroit that does fashion and sneaker design. So please, let's give a warm, warm welcome to the self-described Sacagawea of streetwear, April Walker.
Woo! Hi, everyone. Before we start, Tony, I have to ask you, where's your family from?
I'm from Charleston, South Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah, but I do have some family in New York.
Okay. I have a lot of family in Virginia, in Culpeper. So when I saw your name, I said, I wonder if that's kinfolk.
I was wondering too now, but
okay.
All right, Ty, I think you're going to get us started. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Hi, Ty.
Hey, Ms. Walker, how are you?
I'm well.
First, I want to start off by saying it's an honor to be able to speak with you.
Thank you.
Thank you today. So let's get into it. So
okay.
I've seen you say that you stumbled into fashion, and I know fashion wasn't always your plan and what you wanted to do. So what was your life like prior to fashion?
I grew up in the 80s in Brooklyn, and it was very different than the landscape now. It was different, and in some ways it was the same. Like it was the Reagan era. It was when the crack era was coming in. Everything was being disrupted because just like now with these programs being canceled and DEI and all these things happening at once, the Reagan administration had very much the same outlook and lens. So it was really a time when a lot of our resources were being eradicated and canceled, and a lot of our hope was very dismal in New York and around the country, because it was literally coming down to feeling like the have and the have-nots in a lot of the neighborhoods. At that time, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have a lot of things. So it was just word of mouth. And so for us, I was very young. I was in high school and then college. And at this time, I was in college. And just really was really rebellious to a lot of what was going on, because the way we were being portrayed, you would only see the news in a certain way, and it was a lot of fear mongering, and it was a lot of showing Black and brown people in a certain lens that wasn't the whole picture. And so when hip hop became commercially viable, now I'm talking about the music, it really spoke my language, because it was young people that were my age, that looked like me, that were from my communities, and they were telling our stories in a very real way. And it was stories that weren't being told on CNN or the news. It was like a bullhorn was being amplified to the world. And now I can hear it on the radio. I could see it at Madison Square Garden. And it was someone that was like, I see you, I hear your stories, I feel you, I am you. And that energy really spoke to me, but not just myself, it traveled. And that's where hip hop culture became more than anything, an energy. And so for me, I was in college for business and communications, and I had one plan in my mind. I knew I didn't want to work for someone, but I was interested in business and communications. But I think that energy just hit me like a tsunami. And I remember Public Enemy being a big influence at that time in like the 80s. Fight the Power, all those songs, you know, spoke to me. So I wanted in, and I couldn't sing, I couldn't rap. I come from a family of musicians, and I knew that creative palette because I saw my father living it, and then my sisters. My father wanted us to sing, dance, whatever. He wanted us to be in that life, but I couldn't do any of those things. So I chose hip hop, you know, or hip hop chose me, you know, and I decided to start making the uniforms and really dove into it first. But I was in college, to answer your question. It was during the crack era, Reaganomics, all the things, and it was very disruptive at that time.
Yeah, I know for many of us, we weren't even thought about around that time period. And I
Yeah,
know it sounds like there was a lot of broken homes and a lot of things going on.
it was very, to be honest, nostalgic of what's happening now in a different way and in some similar ways.
Okay. 212 Green Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, Clinton Hill. What's the significance of this address, and why is it so important in your early fashion journey?
That's a great question. 212 Green Avenue is the foundation. It is the launching pad for my dreams and my reality. And it was located like 6 blocks from my home in Brooklyn. And where it was, the location, the proximity was between Fort Greene and Bed-Stuy. So it's a funny place, Clinton Hill, because it sits like right between two neighborhoods. And at that time, it was on the border going into Bed-Stuy, but then going back towards, it was Clinton Hill and going back towards downtown Brooklyn. Brooklyn, again, like it said, it was different, but at this time, it was very gritty, very gritty. And my first shop, I remember me saying, I started in my home and outgrew my home. My mother was like, you can't do this anymore here. So I literally went and I talked into a nice young man named Bill Clinton, who owned 212 Green Avenue, who rented me my first place. It was $750 a month. And he said he would give me an opportunity. I remember coming home with the lease and my father was in shock, you know. But I was 21 and I was really clear. I believed in hip hop big time. So I was like, this is going to be it. And it became a magnet for hip hop culture, like everybody from break dancers to artists that painted to actual consumers. The energy was just unstoppable at that time. So I think anyone who was living in that space and breathing in that space, they say energy. I say energy attracts energy. And that's just what happened with 212 Green Avenue. It became a creative force that became a force multiplier, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, I heard you say $750. I mean, at that time, that had to be a lot. Like, how did you feel about paying that much? Were you a little nervous?
Scared. I was really scared because that was a lot of money then, you know, and I wasn't sure. I wasn't an entrepreneur before that. I mean, I was like, you know, selling dresses and things like that in high school, but I never had responsibilities that included payroll or operations or actual commercial space that you would have to pay rent monthly, $750. But I took a chance. Mm-hmm. I just believed the dream was bigger than me. And I look back now on a lot of things, and there's this book called Start With Why. And one of the things Simon Sinek says is start before you're ready. And I definitely started before I was ready, probably. But the other thing is, I think that if you're so committed to a dream and you're so really committed all in and believe in it, it's like the universe conspires to assist you. And you learn as you grow and go.
Okay. Well, can you tell us what an average day was like at your shop at the peak? Like, what was going on inside and outside? Yeah.
It was different daily, but when I saw it, the first thing I thought about was we had a storefront with the iron gates. So I'd come in, I lift the gate. I had a chow chow named Red, so I'd bring my chow to work with me, and I would lift the gates. And then the store was set up so in the front of the store it was like a homegrown couch that we made, and then you had showcases that actually separated the back, and then we made a curtain that went across. To your right, we did this big, we had an artist put a dog on it that was he was all hip hopped out, that said, "Don't believe the hype." And he had on a Fashion in Effect t-shirt on the wall. That was our mural. But whenever a customer came in, they would sign it, the wall. So ultimately that wall was filled up. But in the back of the store, I had 2 tailors. So I would come in and give the tailors the play for the day, what we were making, what we were working on. We'd review fabrics, we'd review the designs. And then I would try to keep them on track with timing, because as you know, all of that costs money, right? When you're charging. So to keep them on point with moving production forward. And then we had a foreman. His name was Randy. He was really talented, and he actually supervised all of the tailors. And that would allow me to go in the front and sell beeper covers and things that were in the showcase, that we were selling at that time, cell phone carriers, etc. And at that time, we had the big ones that look like airplanes almost,
Okay. You painted a great picture. I could really visualize like what you were talking about. That's
so
pretty cool.
And we would just, talk to our consumers. Our consumers were our friends. They became friends and family, at that store, most of them. And a lot of them were families, that were hardworking people that did everything from wanting Easter outfits to, something for a concert, to blue collar and white collar workers, to artists. And at that time in New York, there were a lot of hustlers too. So it included that too.
Okay. And one thing I hear you speak about a lot is your passion, and how that's important. And I see that before you even started your business, 2 things kind of stuck out to me that kind of motivated you even more to start a business was Fresh Fest and Dapper Dan. So how did that influence you on like being adamant about starting your fashion brand?
I think Fresh Fest was just probably, it was very influential in the way that, like I said, that energy was so prominent at that time. So going to a concert and seeing LL Cool J and Run DMC on stage, and just seeing all these kids my age filling up the garden, was just energy that couldn't be contained, right? Okay, like we get it, even if grown-ups don't get it, or the rest of the world, right? And then the other thing was what they were wearing and what they weren't wearing. Before that time, there was a saying called dress for success. And they would tell you in school you had to dress a certain way all the time, not like you look right now with the hoodie and your snapback on. It was like you had to dress a certain way if you wanted to be successful. At least that was the sound bite. Coming up with my father, it was different because I saw different, and that wasn't the case. But for most, it was like, if you want a good job, you have to dress this way, you have to do this. And I think that Run DMC and LL further validated that you could take a different path, and it didn't have to be, you know, a lawyer, or it could be something creative versus what your mother and father wanted, or a lot of adults at that time. And you could also, and it could be considered professional, right? Because they were performing in front of Madison Square Garden. And the other thing it did was disrupt that whole soundbite that Dress for Success looked a certain way. And so for me, that was really important. So that Fresh Fest in all of those ways still stand out in that way. Dapper Dan was just he's to me, I often give him credit for streetwear, but if I'm really, really honest, I mean, he gets a large portion of it, and it's the first in the lane of what I identified with. But the other person that I often talk about is Willie Smith. Willie Smith came even before him, and I wore Willie Smith in high school. And Willie Smith was a Black designer that said he didn't make clothes for the queens or kings of the world. He made clothes for the people in the street. So he probably should be credited as some debate and say he is the first person to have a streetwear line. It didn't look like what we did with hip hop, but he was intentional about touching the people and being very real in the streets and making clothes for us. So I think that's important to note as well.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of research about Dapper Dan, and I feel like since you said Willie Smith, I feel like it's important that I'll go back and do some research on him too, because I wasn't familiar.
Yeah,
And what
Dapper
you,
Dan's incredible though. I mean, I give him a lot of props. I love him. He's a good friend, and you know, I watched his journey, and I'm super proud, you know, that he's still standing and opening a new atelier shop on Fifth Avenue, and, you know, really, really keeping his legacy strong. And he was a beacon of light for us all, everyone that came after him.
yeah, and what you spoke about how like your parents didn't see what you saw as far as being able to have a future doing hip hop. I kind of feel like that's similar to the kids in this generation want to be social media influencers or TikTok influencers. A lot of
Right,
parents don't see it as a real job, but these kids are making a lot of money and they're living, and that's successful in our generation.
right, definitely, definitely. I think I have to say my father did see it. My mom didn't, but my father did. He was my only supporter. So I have to mention that. But most parents didn't at that time. And it's still like that. That's why, you know, I'm very forgiving and very, um, I give grace to young people, because I remember what that was like when people told me what I should and shouldn't be doing, and to manage my expectations. And I just know that if you don't understand something, that's okay. But that doesn't mean it can't happen for the next person just because you don't understand it.
Okay, so I'll actually be taking over and asking my questions.
Okay.
Um, so entering a male-dominated industry as a young Black woman that doesn't have as much experience is a challenge, but it's something that's a powerful choice and something to embrace and overcome. So, how did you ensure your voice was heard in a male-dominated industry?
I often say, and it's true, I was naive to fear. Like when you're really young, sometimes you think you're invincible. And I didn't look at the male female thing so much because, um, well, just by default, when I started, even with the shop, a lot of the things I made, well, not all. When I started with the shop, we started with custom, and we started with a lot of couture stuff. And then we moved into building a brand called Walkerwear from Fashion in Effect. But with that, one of the reasons I started with men's was because at that time, we made baggy clothes, right? The consumer was shifting into this baggier they were asking for it and thirsty for it. And it really allowed me to really step into that space without having I didn't have the background for fashion. I came from business. I came from communications, and I was learning on the job, literally. So from the master tailors, I knew how to design. That part was innate, but I wanted to make sure that I had the bodies right in the fit, in the specs. And so it was easier to start with men's because, as a woman, we want our stuff to fit right, you know. And even then it was like that. So I didn't feel as confident, and I had a bigger base with men's from fashion. In effect, I already had a built-in customer with men at that time, from Biggie to Audio 2 to Jay-Z. All of these were my clients already, and they were spreading the word to their base, which were mainly men. So it was easy for me to lean into what was already there in front of me, right? I think that relationships are really important. So I think part of it was having those relationships already formed from fashion in effect to build on. But oftentimes just being a woman in the world, it's just a different experience still. And I think that in the beginning, when I was young, I didn't understand a lot of how to communicate myself. It was a different time. It was very misogynistic in the 80s versus now. I think women are a lot more empowered and to use their voices. But at that time, there weren't any women really then in fashion in the space where I was, at least that you knew of, right? So I was really assertive. I mean, really assertive, and I think that it wasn't until I was in business after a while that I understood how to fall back and then when to push forward, being assertive. And that was part of maturity and experience. And it was also part of my growth lessons. And then sometimes I think early on, I realized I had men that were on my team. I hired men and women. So I'd let a man speak for me sometimes because it was easier to communicate and convey what I needed if it wasn't coming from me. So I learned those skills and discerned who I was talking to and how to communicate or how not to communicate, how to make a man think it's their idea when it's not. If you want to execute, what's more important, getting your idea across or having the credit? And sometimes it's not having the credit, it's just moving it forward, the needle forward. So understanding all those things take time. And sometimes you do want credit, and that is going to be really important. So just the discernment and the experience, I think, teaches you when to push forward, when to fall back, when to be quiet, and the confidence that you build through these experiences and as life goes on prepares you for that.
Sorry, I didn't unmute myself, but
No.
that's really inspiring to hear, like, as a Black woman, because I'm not gonna lie, things like that frustrate me when I, like, but I admire how you take that, like, you acknowledge that oppression, I guess, and instead use it as a tool to move forward within your career. I think that's inspiring. But that actually leads to my next question. So, how did you keep yourself maintained, grounded, and committed to such a huge goal at a young age, especially coming into the industry as a groundbreaking Black woman?
So I think coming into the industry, I didn't know I was a groundbreaking woman at that moment, to be honest. I was just living my dream and really carving it out. And I think when we're in the present and you can't see, like, now I could look back in history and see all of that, but at that time you're just every day one foot in front of the other, building and around your team and trying to keep them motivated when you're trying to keep the lights on or trying to push forward, right? Or you have all these great things coming in but not the dollars. So it's like, if I'm really honest, it was faith over fear, and it was a lot of God. I'm a spiritual person, so God paved the way for me. I can't take credit for it. I don't know how I did it. Faith was really a big part of it, and really, I think God did prepared me with enough faith to know very early this was bigger than me. It wasn't just about me. It was a dream that really helped a lot of other people. Like when you think about Tony Shellman that started Mecca and Aniche, he came from my camp. He was my first sales rep. Like he learned the blueprint and then went and started that. Danny Shaw that started Pure Player, $30 million company. He was my assistant. He was in Flatbush and he was going to go down the wrong road. And, you know, just seeing these people and being able to identify that, or being the vessel, right, at that time to be used to help them and catapult them. And if you look at these companies, like Tony's company sold for $140 million, right? And he employed a ton of people, and the industry just grew and multiplied and multiplied. So that's what I mean by force multipliers. And I think in that way, no one had a clue. None of us. We were just doing what we love. And that's why I say God really was the credit to all of this. But I really think that when you come from an environment that holds you back and oppresses you, it could work against you, but it can also work for you. You can have a very resilient and a relentless spirit to succeed. And I think that I definitely had that resilience and I was relentless to move forward. There was no failing in my mind, like we're gonna win. And so I think that it takes a certain amount of that in order to move forward, because you have to believe it. Because if you believe it, then your team can believe it. But if you don't believe it, it's not going to go anywhere. And I believed in myself, even against the odds. And I think that, you know, when people tell you what you can't do, it's only a reflection of what they believe about themselves. So you don't take that personal. You don't hold that. Let that energy bounce off, and you keep going. You just stay tunnel vision on your dreams and believe it.
That was a beautiful response. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What has been on this topic of women empowerment? You have a quote that I've seen you talk about on the news, which you have a collection coming out with the name of this quote. And congratulations on the design studio named after you in Detroit. The
Thank
quote
you.
is, "The future's been female." And I really want you to elaborate on that quote, especially for the women in this chat, for them to be able to just hear how you feel about that.
Well, to be honest, I can remember when Hillary Clinton was running for president, and I think it was on that campaign, I heard the future is female. That was one of her campaign mantras. And the first time I heard it, it was just natural. I thought, no, the future's been female, you know. And it applies in so many ways. That's why I love it. If we think about Shirley Chisholm, if you think about Zelda Wynn Valdez, if we think about Beverly Johnson being the first woman on Vogue, American Vogue, or, you know, Rashumba, or Iman, or Grace Jones, or Josephine Baker, we can go on and on and on and on and on, to right now, you know, to Walk Aware, to me being the first, you know, we've been here. It's a lot of times women do not get the credit and they don't feel seen, or they're not acknowledged. But oftentimes, if you see a movement, there's a woman involved. And she's probably the baseline and the backbone and that foundation of that movement. You might not know her name, but she's been there. So in that respect, the future's been female. When you think about the human race, it comes from women. We birth our humans, you know, like that's why we have our society. So we give life in that way. The future's been female, you know, in so many different ways. I just think that it's time now for women to really step up and keep stepping up as they are, to claim their place as human beings, to be equal and to be seen and treated the same way. I think that one of the biggest magic tricks that holds us back in our humanity is holding us as like we have such differences, when I think that at the end of the day, our world is but one country and mankind are the citizens. Like we all are the same at the end of the day. So we get rid of these dividing lines, female, male, this, that, color, whatever it is. If we could let go of that, I do believe that we need to acknowledge all the injustices and everything. But I also believe that there can be harmony if we look at each other the same.
Okay, thank you so much. And I really just like that quote because I feel like we as people, we always have like a quote or something that we attach ourselves to when we're going through a hard time. And I felt like that could be something that, my peers that are women, something that they can grab onto. Like, my time is now. I don't have to wait. I don't have
It's
anything.
now, period.
Yeah, thank you.
I agree. And it's something I think we'll move forward with. It's funny, that's one of my best sellers. And I think that it speaks to women of all denominations, of all ages. They always say, I like that, when I'm wearing it or someone else. And it's just because it's so real. It's just like, if you think about it, you could take it in any context and it could apply to you, a woman. And then allies can be involved too, men.
Okay, so we're gonna like steer into talking about your brand, especially since you've relaunched it. So, how has it been navigating how to connect your clothes with the newer generation?
It has been interesting. It's been good for me in the sense that I believe in reverse mentorship too. I believe I can learn from younger people. So I surround myself by younger people. I teach as well with younger people. So I'm always trying to understand them without judgment. I think a lot of seasoned people, that's our biggest challenge. When we become older, we get rigid and really stuck to our thoughts instead of staying agile. So I really try to chin check myself when I find myself going there and remember who I was at that age. Or I just know the world is moving faster with time than ever before. Time is moving exponentially, and the digital era has really uh, catapulted that movement. I think the digital era, you're seeing changes daily, right? So technology has been a game changer. So the way I communicated in my age group at 18, at 25 is different than the way you communicate, right? Um, like dating apps is a whole thing for me. I'm like, that's outer space, right? For me. But I know that 90% of the people are doing dating apps. So it's like, just understanding it without judging it, but it still feels like outer space to me. But I'm like, okay, the world is changing. Whatever that is like trying not to hold a judgment, but understand it. And sometimes the stuff the kids in my class say are crazy to me. But I just remember I was that person, and I'm sure my parents and others were saying she's crazy. You know what I mean? But I'm a lover anyway. So that's what I just do, and try to keep my heart, my mind open to new ideas, and to impart what I have, but also to learn from them. And new discovery is important. And I have a lot of new discovery, and they keep me on my toes. Um, so young people are part of my team. I have a new campaign coming out. Like, without sharing too much, I did a collaboration with Reebok, and I was very intentional to use some of the um, people in the campaign that I mentor and show a spotlight on them for their talents and who they are and their younger beings and their growth. And just really, really cross collaborate wherever I can with young people, because I know we all need that climb up that ladder and as much assistance as we can get.
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to hear from like an older generation that like you know, you put yourselves in our shoes too and like understand that you are at this point sometimes. 'Cause sometimes I feel like there's such a divide between like the younger generation and the older generation when there really shouldn't be, especially right now with everything going on, because that's how we move forward. But
Yeah.
anyways, so when first curating your brand line, you did it with the goal of providing a platform for hip hop fashion that wasn't being represented. With everything going on economically and politically now, and with your brand relaunching, how has it inspired you to use fashion once more for racial expression? And is your approach different compared to what it was before?
So I think at the base, our line represents a culture, and we make the uniforms. I, at the core, we make timeless classics with quality that fit the lifestyle of a particular customer. And that customer could be from 8 to 80. It's just really casual, it's active wear, and it fits. I want you to feel like you can have it now, but in 5 years, you can pull it out the closet and you won't be like, oh, I can't wear this now. I have people that tag me on Instagram and say, I have this from 1993. And that makes me feel so good, you know, because it's still in mint condition and it's something they could wear now, you know. But then when I do fashion pieces in different collaborations or the future been female, it is with intent. It's with an intent to, I think I use fashion to really storytell in a very intentional way. And I think I always have. And a lot of it has to do with what's going on in the world or how I'm feeling. It could speak to socio-economic, political times and landscapes or injustices. Like the program that's coming out right now that I did is with Reebok has a human rights category, and I chose that category. And so it is about racial inequality. It's about leveling the playing field. It had statements like fly is as fly does. Lateral cooperation creates vertical movement. Um, you know, and a few others, but it's always about how can I use my voice, use fashion to use my voice to push our culture forward in a positive way.
All right.
Yeah,
So
I'm
I,
always, oh, sorry, go ahead,
all right,
Bunzy.
Tony, go ahead. You got it. You got it. You got it.
No, I was just gonna like help transition into the next question. I was just gonna say that I'm always like a big advocate of using art for racial and self-expression. I feel like in our generation, we kind of lost the beauty of art being used as a mean for like political movements and political progression. So yeah, that's beautiful to hear.
Thank you.
All right. And so I know, Ty, I said we're about to start Q&A, but I know you got one question that you really want to ask. And so I'll let you ask that, but then after that, we'll get right into Q&A.
Yeah, this is a personal question of mine.
Okay.
So I was browsing your Instagram, just being nosy, and I'm like, she's pretty fly even at the age that she is now. Like she's very fly,
Thank you.
and I'm like, she's been fly her whole life. So is there one timeless piece in your wardrobe that you'll never part ways with? Like you've been wearing it for years.
Uh, so I think I'm gonna plug my classic hoodie because ever since I started, I made that hoodie. It's still my best seller, and I have a whole bunch of them just because they're comfortable. And I'm a hoodie girl. At the end of the day, I'm a hoodie girl. But the other thing that I think I really love, and I look at, I did a shoot this weekend with. You talk about what we do. So there's an exhibit coming up with 12 women that were incarcerated that really had a lot of trauma and triggering, and I styled them this weekend, and we did a shoot to make them feel seen and beautiful and all the things, and we'll have an exhibit that talks about it and shows that March 27th. I think it's the launch date for that. But in that, I brought some jumpsuits, and the styling assistant said, you know, you really should do an exhibit with your jumpsuits because you've done jumpsuits throughout your career. And I never even paid attention to it. So it probably would be, you know, jumpsuits. I love things that are comfortable, that are easy to get in, and I could just work or style up or down. And I think my mechanic suit, I did a bunch for Tretch from Naughty by Nature, and I've just done them all my life. And I really do have an affinity for those as well.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to know because I'm one of those people, like, I have things that I've had like my whole life.
I get it.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and hop into our Q&A. Tony and Ty, you guys did an incredible job. And also, just so y'all know,
Yes.
as we've been talking, I've been dropping some of the links in the chat. There's a whole thing on Willie Smith that you can find there. We haven't talked about him in class so far, but I'll make sure that we circle back to that. I linked the Simon Sinek book and also the Walker Wear hoodie too, just so you know, in case you're interested.
Thank you.
So, Sebastian, I believe I saw your hand go up like right away, like 20 minutes ago. Do you want to start us off? You can unmute and ask it yourself, or you can type it in the chat.
All right, thank you. Again, congratulations, Miss April, and it's an honor to speak to you.
Thank you.
I got a two-part question, and you hit on some of it. I think Tony and Ty hit on some of it. But my thing is, and I know you say God is your guide, and I know you said that it wasn't no fear. You know, most of us do start early with no fear in what we do. But at some point in life, it's always, you know, like you said, the women out here that y'all are the movement. You know, y'all been the movement since, you know, y'all what created us and brought us into this world. So we appreciate that. But it's always some adversity, and there's always somebody trying to stop you step in the way. And then the trust. How did you trust your staff? How did you get your staff? And the other thing I want to ask you, you said just a few minutes ago that you are dressing out female prisoners. So tell me what else you do besides giving back to the community, and how to somebody like myself, my classmates, how do we get involved in connecting with you and seeing the movement that you, because I do a lot of community service. So
Okay. So I think I've got your questions kind of. I'm gonna go through them real quick. So as far as trust, I think when I look at my journey, I'd rather work with people that I really felt were good people intrinsically, because I believe you can teach people anything, right? If they really have passion to learn and to really want it, you can really show them and give them the tools and really educate them. It's different when you hire people that are qualified that don't care, because you're never going to get that passion. You're never going to get that extra push. You're never going to have if they don't really believe in it and they just want money, it's a different relationship. So I try not to go for transactional, but transformational, if that makes sense. And even in that, I had adversity. I'd had to fire some people. I had to go through some things, and you still have moments, because that's why we're human, right? But I try to always remain me and not let those experiences change me, if that makes sense, right? And grow from those decisions and look in the mirror and say, what did I do? What didn't I see? What could I do better as a leader? You know, and then not hold it and not really beat myself up. So that's the A. The B is with community work, it's an ongoing process for me. So there is no one blueprint. I just roll up my sleeves where I see fit. So I work a lot with, there's an organization you can look up in New York. It's called, if you want to get involved, I do a lot of collaborating with them, Brooklyn Combine. And they are some good brothers out of New York that are lawyers that do a lot of community work for social justice and for all forms. And then they have women they work with also. So Dr. Nadia Lopez opened actual school here in Brooklyn, in Brownsville. And she does a lot of different work. And that's who I did the collaborating this weekend with, and as well as some other things. So it just depends. Like this program that I'm doing with Reebok, I chose to choose a nonprofit called Black Girls Sew, which we will give a portion of the proceeds to them so they can get besides a portion of the proceeds, hopefully now their actual nonprofit is amplified and other people can find out about it. So just being intentional, I think, is important. And unfortunately, there's but so much time in the day for me, but I try to do what I can where I can. And I would say, if you want to follow me, Sebastian, because I'm always talking about places, things I'm going to be speaking at. And from time to time, I do teach as well. But from time to time, I'll do special master classes and things like that, mentorship sessions.
Thank you very much, man. You've been a help. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, who wants to go next? You can either raise your hand or just unmute or type it in the chat. And like I said in the chat, if y'all are feeling shy, I'm going to call on people.
I had a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, Miss Walker. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. I had kind of two in one. Being when you were younger, I felt like what you were doing felt like out of reach, or it felt like a thing of the future. So what do you think? What qualities now would outshine? Because I feel like hip hop is now something that surrounds us. So what does it take to be different?
A lot of times I think that is a loaded question, but I think that you don't think about what it takes to be different. You just already are different in some way. You really are. Like, each one of us have a unique ability that nobody else on the planet has. And it's just really identifying what that is. What I can tell you from my experience, looking back to most people that I've mentored, to myself, you know, to others, a lot of times we don't own our own magic or that thing that's different until, if we're lucky, later, right? And some of us never own it because we think, like, we let other people, other ideas put pressure on us to think that it has to be harder than it is. The thing that you do easiest and that you love the most and that it just comes to you, that's probably a unique gift and talent that you have that other people might not have. It might be really hard for somebody else to do content, let's say, you know, in a specific way, but it's like things you can do 1, 2, 3. Like, this just comes to me in my sleep. It might be, you know, arranging flowers, you know, that's a skill, a real skill. It might be a chef. It might be cooking. You might be able to throw down and love it, right? But you don't even consider it as a career because I have to do something. It can't be this because this is just too easy. No, that's probably the thing. That's what I will say. Like, lean into, don't, my advice to tell you all is, don't chase the money. The money will follow. Chase the thing you love, and that is the gold, in the sense of, I think the money has us all messed up right now, if I'm really honest with you. If you look at the world and you look at what's going on in the world, if you can live a fulfilling life and you can do the things you love and you can collaborate with other people that you love and you can travel and you can do all these things and have a really fulfilling life, that's the lotto ticket. That is the lotto ticket. I know a lot. I've met so many people in my life, and I know this is hard to hear because we're brought up in a capitalist society, but I met a lot of millionaires that were miserable. And when I tell you miserable, miserable, and that have committed suicide and done all these things. So I know that's not the answer. It comes from inside, and you'll only be fulfilled inside if you're doing that thing that feeds your soul. So whatever that thing is that comes to you, like, that's your gift. You got that magic, lean into it, trust it. That's different. That's your different,
Thank
because
you.
most people won't do it, Mecca. Most people are gonna play it safe. Don't be safe.
Yeah, that's wow. Incredible advice, y'all. So Cammy, do you want to unmute and ask your question, or do you want me to ask it for you?
Okay, I asked it.
You
I
got it.
asked you, hey, my name is Cammy. Sorry. Let me turn my camera on.
Hi, Cammy.
My name is Cammy. My question to you was, how did you feel when you had your first celebrity client, and what's your favorite fashion trend today?
So my first client was probably maybe Shinehead or Shaggy. I don't know if you guys remember those guys. That's way before you, but they were both from Brooklyn, and they both found out about my store and came in the store, and it was amazing. So that was amazing for me. Can you hold 1 second, guys? Hold on. I'm sorry about that. Just answer this.
And then Julius, I saw your hand pop up. So Stephanie had already asked her question. So I'm gonna get after Cammy's, we're gonna go to Stephanie, then go to you, and then we'll go to Jensley, just so you know.
Gotcha.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Back. Okay, so celebrity clients, Shinehead, Shaggy, and then Audio 2. Audio 2 was the first cover I did, and they really put me on the map and really introduced me to the world of styling. And then your second question was fashion trends. If I'm honest, I don't like that word trends. So I really don't have fashion trends. I'm really like more into timeless styles and things that speak to me. This would be one though. Like lately I've been really feeling wraps, and I know I see a lot of women with wraps. I don't know if that's a trend or that's something that will be in and out, but I don't go by, and this is just all, I think that's part of, if I had to pick something, my magic, I don't go by what other people are doing. I just do what I feel, and that translates in the uniform that I'm wearing. You know what I mean? So it's just how I feel. So I don't pay attention to fashion trends a lot because of that. And that's something I did with hip hop in terms of creating, and it allowed me to create a lane. But if I played by those rules, Cammie, of paying attention to what everyone else was doing in fashion, I might have felt like I had to make that, right? Instead of creating whatever I was feeling. And that allowed me to be different. Did that help, Cammie?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Stephanie, I think you're next.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, can y'all hear me?
Yep.
I can hear you.
Okay, great. I'm sorry, I can't turn my camera on. I'm really just appreciative of the time and space that we're sharing with you today. My question was, I love the advice you gave about starting before you're ready. And I was wondering if you could just speak to, when you realized that it was time though to invest in your business in ways like purchasing, contracting with lawyers, really firming up your business officially, hiring accountants and things of that nature. Like, when did you feel like it was time for that? Even because you start before you're ready, but at some point you got to like
really
get
dig in.
ready.
Yeah.
Right.
In those first 3 years, it was growing pains. We had a lot of luck out the gate, but I think the second year I started, every year you grow, you get more responsibility. And then looking around and seeing what people were doing right and wrong through networking, I realized the more I didn't do it right, the more I would grow into wrong. And the harder it would be to change things later, if that makes sense. So by the third year, I think we were super straight in terms of understanding. Like we were paying taxes, we were doing those things, but like then when we started thinking about doing a collection with Walkerwear, we did our homework and found out about trademarks, and we got a trademark attorney, and we searched around for other trademarks. A lot of what I did at that time was look at success. Success leaves clues, and so I wasn't trying to figure it out on my own. I would look at who is Tommy Hilfiger using, or who is this one doing, and what are they doing? What does their team look like behind the curtain? And then if I'm not using them, I would ask, which a lot of times I didn't because it was a conflict, but I would ask people that were veterans if they could refer me to someone that was in the business, you know, and then I just get I'd always ask for references. And at that time I had to go through a few, because a lot of times when you're doing something different, and hip hop was very different then, they don't believe in you and they will turn you down sometimes, but you'll find the right person. And when you find that right fit, you'll know it, because a big part of working with your team is knowing that they have your back and they believe in you, and you want to find that. So that's like dating. It takes going through some people sometimes, but you'll get there. And so I started early on, and I changed more than once, you know, with lawyers, with this, with that, but just really staying on it. I think the business part of it is an essential part of it, because that's what we are in business. We're really we have passion, we have creativity, but if you're not taking it serious, it's a hobby.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I mean, you just dropped another small gem. Success leaves clues. I think that's absolutely correct. And following those crumbs and then asking for references, that's just another gem. So again, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, Julius, I think you're up next.
Hey, how you doing, Miss Walker?
Hi, Julius.
How you doing? I just want to first say I appreciate your words, especially me being a creator myself. I really appreciate your words and
Thank you.
value that.
Thank
And
you.
my question was, so throughout your journey, was there ever a point in time where you thought maybe this dream couldn't work? And if so, how did you persevere through that? Because I know as a creator, it can get really like,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, can this work?
Heavy.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's very hard. I think I often say there were definitely times when I don't know if I ever. There was a time I closed. You know, I was like, I'm taking a break. I had a burnout, and that was around 2001, maybe. I took a break in '99, and then I went on to. I was the vice president at Fat Farm. A lot of people don't know that. And then I went to One, and I started a women's division. And then after that, I was like, for a minute, you know, just because the fashion industry can be toxic and heavy. And a lot of time, just as for all of us that are creators on this call, toxicity can be masked in your passion, meaning that if you are so driven and so hell-bent on making this dream you have work, and you're so ambitious that you forget to self-care and what that looks like, or you don't have self-care tools, you don't know how to exhale, you don't know how to be at one with other things like life, that after a while the thing you're chasing and the thing you're loving can be the thing that you start to resent and you don't like anymore. So I think for me, I experienced burnout. I never stopped loving what I did. I stopped loving what the industry became too. I started at 21, and by the time I was at Magic at, you know, by 2000, it looked very different, and it was so hype beast, and it was so, it really became like a circus to me, and it wasn't being taken serious. And so for all those things, I felt overwhelmed, and I wasn't prepared to deal with it. It's like the compound effect, and I needed a break. So I took it. I was very afraid to walk away because it was at the perceived height of my success. But I also knew that it was going to be me or walk away, and which one mattered more. And for me, it was me. Like, I need that, you know, and so I listened to that, and it was the best thing I did because it centered me, it grounded me. I took time with nature, with just a lot of things to really get a lot of things in perspective and say, all right, if I'm going to do this, these are the tools that I'm going to impart. This is how I'm going to live. And this is not going to lead my life, but it's just going to be a part of it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Did I answer that for you?
Yeah,
Julius?
you did. Yeah, you did. Just honestly, just being grounded within like yourself and who you are, I think is very important as well. Just making sure not to fall out of love with your passion.
Take time for you and for other things and to learn other things too. It's really important. I think the world we live in now is different than when I started. So if I could tell you all something, I would tell you like, make sure you understand business or international business. Make sure whatever you're doing is teaching you professionally and personally, and it's broadening your horizon so that you love this, but whatever that skill set is, you have your creative skill set, but you're also backing it up with the business that can support it. And that business is transferable to other businesses.
All right, so Jensley, I think you're last. We've already answered the second part of your question, but do you want to ask the first part of your question before we sign off?
Yeah, I asked it. I got a question also, like reflecting on your career, what emotions did you experience when you secured your high profile client?
Confirmation, always gratitude, always gratitude. I'm grateful today, for the good, the bad, the ugly, because it's all teaching me something. But man, I'm very grateful for the support that I've had through this journey. And if I'm honest, it's definitely been hip hop more than the fashion industry. So I'll always give hip hop culture flowers because it definitely shows up for me every time, And I'm also grateful that I never came in this industry for the fashion industry to validate me or anyone else. I did this for myself. And I think that's important for all of you to be very clear on why you're creating and not looking for the approval for others, but to create your own utopia and your own dream and know what that looks like for yourself, or just be very clear on it so you're not disappointed.
All right, Jensley, if you don't have anything to follow up, Miss Walker, thank you so much. And for everybody in this room, I want us to really reflect on what Miss Walker's been talking to us about, throughout this whole session, because, even if you're not interested in fashion or even a creative industry, a lot of the things that she's talking about are things that we all have to struggle with and grapple with. And I think it's definitely time for us to listen to our artists too. So, I just want to encourage all of you to really take that advice wherever you go, whether it's marketing or STEM or doing humanities work or graduate school or whatever, because what she's telling you is, as someone who's early in my career, it's extremely powerful and it's great for me to hear it too. So Ms. Walker, thank you so much for your time today. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. I really appreciated being here with you all, and I'm really excited for your journeys. And with all of those gems, just know that believe in yourself more than anything else and keep going.
Absolutely. And so for those of you who are joining us from outside, next time we're going to be joining with a different class, which is our hip hop feminism class, and we're going to be talking to Rod Digga next week. And so that's the next speaker in the series. So join us. There'll be an Eventbrite on Instagram soon. Yeah, but Ms. Walker, again, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.